UFC 218 UFC Featherweight Championship Rematch, more fan favorites. UFC 218 doesn&apos T carry an eye-popping name like Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey or Jon Jones. However, if you like quality fights with intriguing storylines and high stakes, Saturday&apos lineup is worth your time and money. Former UFC middleweight champion discusses his decision to fight Kelvin Gastelum at UFC-Shanghai just 21 days after his title loss to Georges St-Pierre at UFC 217. Maybe it&apos for the UFC Featherweight Championship rematch between Max Holloway and Jose Aldo in the main event. Or perhaps the heavyweight title eliminator between Alistair Overeem and rising star Francis Ngannou in the co-headliner. If neither of those do the trick, the Ultimate Fighter 26 inches coaches Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje are set to clash, as are top strawweight contenders Michelle Waterson and Tecia Torres. Whatever desires come with being a fight fan, UFC 218, which takes place at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit and airs on pay-per-view, 10 p.m. ET, caters to all. The card truly has a little bit of something for everyone. The title rematcher originally scheduled to put his 145-pound title on the line against Frankie Edgar, champ Max Holloway, 18-3 MMA, 14-3 UFC, now rematches injury replacement Jose Aldo, 26-3 MMA, 8-2 UFC, in the main event of UFC 218. Although Holloway already beat Aldo by third-round TKO at UFC 212 in June to claim the gold, the dynamic of an immediate rematch also brings a lot of new questions and narratives. Aldo, who many still consider the greatest featherweight of all time, had never lost a rematch. He&apos also has never gone into a UFC title fight as the challenger, despite participating in 8 of them. He claims to be injury-free ahead of the second fight, and, if his full arsenal of weapons is available, is a real threat to take back the title. Dethroning Holloway will be a no easy task, though. The Hawaiian already carries the confidence of having beaten Aldo once, which was part of his incredible 11-fight UFC winning streak. Holloway&apos evolved into one of the world&apos finest fighters since an August 2011 loss to McGregor, and at just 25, Holloway isn't&apos even at his prime. Beating Aldo for a second time in 6 months would only add to his growing legend, or what he calls, the blessed era. At the end of the day, this is a legacy fight, Holloway tells Rolling Stone. This is huge for legacy. Jose back-to-back. Nobody ever beat him twice. Being the greatest featherweight champion is a long journey. This is a step. The heavyweight eliminator. The octagon walls might need some reinforcement when more than 500 pounds of heavyweight power enters the cage for Overeem, 43-15 MMA, 8-4 UFC, versus Ngannou, 10-1 MMA, 5-0 UFC, which will likely determine the next challenger to current divisional kingpin Stipe Miocic. It&apos a clash of two compelling tales. Overeem is a more than 20-year veteran of the sport who has accomplished it all outside of winning the UFC championship. He was on the cusp of knocking out Miocic at UFC 203 in September 2016, and since he&apos been determined to get a rematch. He&apos won 2 straight since that fight, and pushing his streak to 3 could get him a second opportunity. Standing in his way, however, is one of the sport&apos most fearsome participants. Ngannou has only been training MMA for just over 4 years, but already he&apos turned into a highlight machine who has stopped all 5 opponents he&apos faced in the UFC thus far. UFC President Dana White has named the frighteningly powerful, yet soft-spoken, fighter as someone with star potential. A win against Overeem could be the turning point for the Predator. It&apos number 39 #UFC 218 fight week. Will Francis Ngannou earn the next heavyweight title shot? #UFC. @1Cathaway @use it today's. It's a post shared by mmajunkie, @majunkie.com. On November 27, 2017 at 9:33 a.m. PST, the UFC-Apos most violent man from the moment the matchup between former UFC and Bellator lightweight champ Alvarez, 28-5 MMA, 3-2 UFC, and former soft champ Gaethje, 18-0 MMA, 1-0 UFC, was announced over the summer. The MMA world has been giddy anticipation to see the two square off. There may not be an official title on the line for the fight, but Alvarez has said he views the contest as one that will determine the UFC-Apos most violent man. If that doesn&apos generate goosebumps, nothing will. Gaethje career to this point could be summarized as one giant slugfest. He goes into every fight hungry for a crazy brawl, and has the ability to lure opponents into his type of fight. The more action, the more Gaethje thrives. He and Apos won all 18 of his professional fights so far, including 15 knockouts. Gaethje thrilled outside the UFC for years, and he picked up where he left off in his promotional debut in July when he won a Fight of the Year,